I was gonna do introductions for you, but I think I want to hear from each of you how you describe yourself and how you describe your work.
Hi, how's it going? Well, first of all, thank you for coming. Y'all look really good.
Yeah.
My mom's like, louder. Is this good? Hi, how's everyone doing? Is that better?
Yeah.
Is this thing on?
Yeah.
So my name is DeVonn. I run Yardy. I'm the founder and creative director. Yardy started for me, I think going on 3 years now, as a way for me to use food as a tool to connect with people, to investigate my own heritage, not just as a Jamaican, first generation Jamaican American person, but also as a queer person of color living in New York. And really thinking about what that intersection meant for me. So, you know, it's not just about the making of the food or what the ingredients were, but how those things reflect back into my identity, how I'm also a continuation of that legacy, and just really finding my place in that sort of history. But then also what I would hope that that did for other people is encourage other people to. So what is your background? What does immigration look like for you and your family? What does that mean for how we relate to each other? And how do we do that around food? And how does food act as a tool for participation? And not just like, you know, you come to a restaurant, because we're not a restaurant. How do you, like, sitting down in front of someone, like what are you going to talk about? Like what is on your mind, and how can we build community through the things that we're doing as we get together, and why even get together? What's at stake for us when we get together? And so that's really what Yardy is for me. We are growing now in a really interesting way. Like, we're doing more creative projects now, so it's not just me cooking, which has been really fab, but also like how are we using design and activations and programming and building events to just really change the way that people think about queer POC culture in New York and abroad. And that's what Yardy is.
Yes, DeVonn. My name is Chantel. I'm Jamaican, live in Jamaica. And my company is called Jamsterdam. And it was born out of being very queer in an island that had so many queer people, but didn't have many spaces for us to be ourselves and come together and be free and proud. So for me, it was about creating spaces for people like myself, and people different than myself, but that maybe didn't always identify with being normal, because like, what the fuck is that, right? For it to just be themselves and be free. And then I met Chris, who is also Jamaican but born here, and was afraid to come back to Jamaica. And we have a mutual friend, Sige, that was like, Chantel, Chris is coming to, my friend Chris wants to come to Jamaica, but he's afraid because he's queer. And I'm like, I'm super queer and I live there. I'm pretty sure I can take you out and we can have a good time. And we met, and Chris is now my family, my sister, my brother, my everything, you know. And so that's why we started CONNEK, to be able, for people all over the world who maybe wanted to come to Jamaica, but maybe thought, there's nobody like me there, or there's no one like Chris there, because there's so many people that are different there, you know. And for a way to change the narrative of what's happening in Jamaica and who Jamaican people are, because it's so diverse, you know. So, thank you.
Hello. My name is Chris, and I am an artist and community organizer. I do visual work. Some of my work is actually up right now at the shed. Sorry. It's gonna be cute, it's a key. I also do a lot of community organizing and a lot of nightlife things, and I am the founder of a platform called RAGGA NYC. And we're actually coming up on our 4th anniversary in a couple weeks. You should come to the party, it'll be fun. And outside just nightlife, I was looking for other queer Caribbean people living in New York that I could connect to and congregate with and talk to. I think that the legacy of slavery and the Christian church has done a lot of damage to queer Black people and people of color and queer people at large. And I was looking to find those conversations, those dance floors, those dinner tables, those cups of coffee conversations that really would help me find myself in relationship to my heritage and also connect to my family. Because it's one thing to come out and be like, all right, cool, I'll just see you later, but it's another thing to really investigate where you're from. Because if you know where you've been, as they say, you know where you're going. And I think that what birthed as just me throwing parties became gallery shows and dinner parties and healing nights and poetry nights. And I think when I did a residency at the New Museum with RAGGA, that the doll right here, DeVonn, cooked a dinner for it, which was beautiful. And it was the activations and events like that, curated with the New Museum residency, that kind of really showed me all the potential that RAGGA had, and to continue to push what RAGGA could be and how it could partner with other queer people of color. And also all these things continue to help me, even my relationship with my mom and my family. Because I think it was about a year and a half ago, I had a conversation with DeVonn, and it was like, I'm a fraud. This lace front isn't real. Oh girl. I was like, what? I was like, I haven't lived in Jamaica since I was like a kid. And I'm scared, and I do this thing called RAGGA, and I've made so much waves here in New York about this community, but I'm scared. And I'm still learning and growing through this own project myself. So he was like, well, I just went, and he told me a really touching story, which we'll touch upon a little later, about him going and reconnected to his family. So I finally started talking about it more to friends, got a connection to do a trip where I would meet someone who's queer and amazing in Jamaica. And thus, over a joint and conversation, Connect was born. And I think that the story of me starting RAGGA, meeting DeVonn through RAGGA, seeing him grow and do Yardy, and then me continuing to push myself and working through projects and art projects and travel projects and dinners and art shows to find myself and find other people like me to talk with and continue to unearth my own fears, has grown to what it is now, which is Connect actually being on the land. Because there's nothing, I mean, travel isn't like free or cheap, obviously, but if you do have the chance to travel and be face to face with people and sit with them and talk with them and take a shot with them and dirty wine with them and everything they got, I mean, you can really change your whole perspective. And also realize we're in America, and it really is our responsibility to not get lost in the sauce and reach back to our family. And we have international families, so, and they're looking for us. And not just throw money at them, and not just post something on Instagram, but really connect with them. And so that's why it's called Indeed Connect, because there's a lot of media online, we have this trip, but it really is about us demystifying the ideas of our home countries and our heritage, and being proud of them, and being proud of people there doing the work and knowing them. And so this project is close to my heart, these people are close to my heart, and I hope you guys are into it.
Photography is beautiful, and your writing is so beautiful on that side as well. I wanted to read something that you wrote about your first trip to Jamaica and once you came back. When I came back to New York, I did a lot of thinking about how afraid I was on the plane to Jamaica, how afraid I was thinking about my own people and homeland, reading articles about the rampant homophobia from my laptop here in Brooklyn. I did a lot of thinking about the way fear of Black countries vibrates outward from media and affects all people. The fear of violence keeps a lot of people away from Black countries throughout the world, and in this case, Jamaica. So how could I change that? I thought that was such a beautiful mission statement for the work that all of you do. But I wanted to talk to you and Chantel about Connect, and not just creating connection to Jamaica, but also community, because at word has come up so much with what the three of you have talked about.
Hello? Compliment Magazine, 9 to 5. Lord knows, she's out here working. Girls gotta get paid, okay? And I am all day looking at images of Italy. Italy, this side of Italy, that country over there that happened to be in Italy, just Italy, Italy, Italy. And so, you know, the more I started thinking about it, and just obviously we know the impact of media, we know the impact of images we see all over the world, but when I went to Jamaica and I came back, I was like, wow, you may think, you know, we are hashtag woke, but you're conditioned, and we're all conditioned, and we're Americans, you know. I may be like, fuck the state, President Trump is trash, but I still am an American, and I benefit from that. When I went to Jamaica and I met these people who like changed my life through conversation and meeting up with them, like, you start to realize small things that kind of blew me away, talking to an ambassador of the CONNEK project. Her name is Moon, and she told me about the like kind of really dark process of getting a visa in Jamaica to just leave the country.
To just visit.
To just visit. Just to like, I'll pop out, to go see trade in Paris. Like, it's ridiculous. And you start to think like, you know, yes, I have all those privileges. Yes, I'm queer. Yes, I'm a person of color. But what can I do? Am I just gonna kind of just like sit with that? Am I gonna like try to connect with these people? Obviously, I can't like change politics in a day, but if you can change your heart and the minds of people you know, that's at least a first step, correct? So it was there was this like glooming cloud over me when I came back from Jamaica of like, oh whoa, class is real. America is indeed one of the original colonist states, as Europe was. It's Europe's child, like, and I'm a part of it. So I can just kind of moving on, or I can do something about it, and with whatever means I have. And so I called it this one. I was like, hey, remember that conversation we had over a joint? And not just a travel trip, but what can we dream for the future of Connect outside of this big travel trip that's happening in April 2020? And bring in a lot of people in. Bring in DeVonn, who can make a meal in Jamaica. Or bring in DeVonn, even is talking about, which I really want you to talk about, is talking about food and agriculture and how that has been impacted by the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, and the World Bank, and how this part of the world, the third world, and the Caribbean often are under these huge kind of pacts and contracts with these two organizations where they're in basically lifetime debt, paying back a debt to these same people who put them in as colonies. And you don't really know that. You just think, oh yeah, Jamaica's pretty. But there's so much technically slavery still happening, even with financial slavery, we don't really know about as Americans. So, and all that plays into my visual work, into my life, my mother, her being an immigrant from Jamaica, and you start to realize, yes, things are better, but there's still so much happening, even just policy-wise. So, at the least I can do is educate myself and connect with these people. So when I'm having conversations about what is a food desert, what's a food ghetto, why is it so hard for me to get visas, you know, all these things, then what can you do next? It's only like, you know, the little person on my shoulder being like, do something, bitch.
And how do you see that? Like, how do you see your connection to Chris, to people coming back to the island, to queer people all over the world?
I think being from Jamaica I don't really think of myself, yes, I am Jamaican and I'm very proud of that, but I feel like we all as people and as humans, we're so much more than wherever we're from. And like, we're all children of the universe. And like, if you ask me what my religion is, it's to do good. Because I feel like these things just divide people. Where you're from divides people. What your race is divides you. What your sexuality is. It's all things that divide us and try to put us, you over there and me over here. And when at the end of the time, we're all atoms. You know what I mean? We're all energy. And so that I feel like everyone that I meet with a similar spirit to me is my family. So like, from I picked up Chris in his like mesh marina, I remember rolling up with like some Vice Cartel playing in my car, and like Chris was just like in a mesh marina ready, car, and I just remember feeling like, whoa, that's my family. Like, we didn't even really have to have a conversation about it, because like, if you are into energy, you feel that. So for me, community is so diverse, and it's not about Jamaica versus America versus anywhere. It's like, what can we all do to make everyone's lives better? And what can we do to really start to understand people more? Because at the end of the time, there is definitely something I could learn from every single person sitting here. And there's definitely something that they could probably all learn from me if we were to be able to have a conversation, you know? So that's kind of my view.
I want to ask you all about entrepreneurship, because you all use it to where you're from, but you also use it in a way to help other people. So how do you see that? Like with Yardy, it's about food, but it's about bigger things than food. It's not just what's on the plate. It's about people connecting over what you're cooking, connecting over the story behind what you're making. It's all of you involve like music and dance and a party. So how do you view like entrepreneurship's like ability to like help you connect and also like foster those environments where people can chat with other people?
Parents really wanted, just I think parents who, my parents, sorry, let's go back. My parents were 13 to 14, correct me if I'm wrong. And they came over from Jamaica, moved to New York, and just like, made a life for themselves in this way, in the best way that they knew how as immigrants coming to a new place. And so there was no, for the most part, real template to, map on what success could look like, especially for a person of color, let alone someone who's coming from a different country. And like we didn't grow up with a trust fund, but like my parents always did their best to make sure that I had a vision in front of me that was them just working their asses off, doing the best that they could to like put me through school, like help me pay for college, and just worked a lot. So my dad, after he retired from the Navy, he was like, I don't necessarily know if it was like a restaurant specifically, but he wanted to do something where he could just have people come and like vibe out and listen to music, and like food was a part of that for him and a part of his DNA growing up with his grandma and aunties who raised him because obviously his parents had come over to come over to the States from Jamaica and were making a life for him in New York before he got there. And that's the story of a lot of immigrant children. And so there's a lot of things around just labor and working hard that I was able to see, and a lot of mistakes also. Not even say mistakes, but just learning growth and places of growth that I had through just very difficult moments of just figuring it out, especially kind of what Chris is saying, in a place like America, when bodies that look like ours are assigned a very specific place, socially, economically, but he did the damn thing and tried his best to make something happen. And so entrepreneurship for me was always, it wasn't about, I went to school for art, but it wasn't about being an artist. I worked in kitchens, but it wasn't about being a chef. It was really about continuing that legacy of creating a template for younger people, not young people, just anyone who was watching, in press or stories or coming to our events, to see that it's possible to just really shape a vision on your own terms, with your own language, with language that maybe doesn't even exist. And really to say, here we are, this is what I am doing, this is why I am valuable, and just really making an attempt to, just vet our own value and worth into a system that says otherwise. And that's something that's really
valuable to yourself.
Yeah, for me, being an entrepreneur is one of the biggest exercises, I think, in self-value. And I think that, a lot of people, and this is something that's come up recently, I just took for a young, Black men retreat out of the state, from the ages 17 to 23, 5 young men who are all just, struggling with their own, home situation or, work situation, but, are getting scared to, just love on each other and just, share energy. And they ask me, they're either well, we see you in the Times, we see you in this, and honestly, for me, press isn't valuable. For me, it's really just having a visual language that helps me to understand that someone who can look like, someone that does look like me, someone who has a background similar to me or adjacent to me, can do whatever the fuck they want. ascribe your own success to that project. And you have to sort of like create that own sort of like rhythm and cadence for yourself, but you can only give that to yourself. No one can give that to you. And I think food is like really like, what's the word? Like diabolical method, because people are like, what's fast food? But there's so much labor that goes like behind it that you don't see, that is like sort of this bliss, because you're going to a restaurant and having an experience for a certain price, that you don't really get to sort of interact with different people who are behind that sort of loop that we are all a part of at the end of the day. Thinking about like the wildfires and Amazon, like, you know, all the things that are the circular processes that we're all a part of that like we just don't talk about. Thinking about creating my own value systems in this board, and also like I want that to be challenged too. Like let me know if I'm like fucking up and not, you know, telling the story right or whatever. But I want something for someone else to go off with, like, hey, like, damn, I want to be like that. I want to feel that community. I want to feel that pull, that love that comes from creating something and being a part of something. And that's what entrepreneurship has done for me.
I think entrepreneurship for me was really a necessity, because when I realized how I didn't see anyone around that looked like me or acted like me back home, or that I could see that I kind of felt like an alien. Like, why am I so different? Why don't I dress like everyone else? Why do I, you know what I mean? Like, why do I have different feelings than everyone else? And in Jamaica at that time, there was no Instagram, there was no, like, everything on Facebook, there was, so you just had people that were living their lives. So for me, I kind of just had to be like, fuck it, either I'm going to be me or I'm going to be something totally else to try and please everyone else. And I think it was a Scorpio in me. I was like, fuck it.
When's your birthday?
11.
Okay, November 19th.
Because I also wanted to show other people that were like young and queer and Jamaican that there are people that are like striving and living authentically without being persecuted, and so you can have someone to look at, you know what I mean? And then it was also, I remember a time when I would try to go to this event that was like a huge event and in Jamaica, and because of how I was dressed, they would not even charge me the price of a man to get it. They would charge me double the price of a man if I wanted to go to that party. And I was like, when I was like 17, I was like, something's profoundly wrong. So I was like, I'm the music stuff that is hard to do. I'm going to do it myself, and I'm going to do it better. And you know what I mean? And it's going to be whatever you want to wear, and good music, and no music that's like one off or like anybody's bad. Like, no, like, you know what I mean? Because we don't need that. And I don't need to pay to go somewhere for that. You know what I mean? Like, so for me, it was like a combination of this necessity of like things that like needed to change and no one was changing them. So I was like, well, I gotta figure out how to change them, and how to, someone like Chris doesn't have to meet me to know that they can come to Jamaica. You know what I mean? They can look at CONNEK and say, wow, poor people are in Jamaica, you know what I mean? So it's just like really necessity, trying to change things back home that need to be changed. You know what I mean?
Like how you see entrepreneurship, how it's connected to
I think entrepreneurship for me has really been, I think from my art to community building to things like this and connecting RAGGA NYC, a lot of the work they do is, I think I had a teacher in undergrad a long time ago who told me, and to stop running away from myself, I was like, that is so, what are you talking about? And she was like, you need to, she's like, you're not being selfish on anything like yourself, you're probably on stage. And so I delved into coming out and what that feel like, how did I feel being the only black kid in my class or my school, hosting parties and dressing up with me on Christina. But then building RAGGA, because RAGGA wasn't kind of just like, oh, I'm going to throw a party anymore. It's like this gallery show. It really was me, like, I need to find what people like me to help myself to feel better about being from this place and having this family and having this heritage that tells me that they might go into Chichimani, what's going on, what's happening online, and that helped. And then being afraid of Jamaica and being Chaday and being connect. So I think a lot of entrepreneurship for me has been very deeply personal, and I realized that I might kind of address the things that I'm afraid of personally, they would in turn help a lot of people. Because I'm not probably not the only one that's dealing with that fear, or dealing with that insecurity, and that's even in my visual work, which was being a visual artist and entrepreneurship. And you know, I think that even like, you know, a lot of my work recently found connected to a lot of to my personal visual work. It's like I'm thinking a lot about the word empathy, and not empathy where you step outside yourself, but start to think about what someone or someone close to you or someone from far away is going through, what their story is, and how that made you feel, and how that has created the person you are today. There's a really good book called Post-Slave Syndrome. It's called Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome. It's not just South-Asian, but they talk about post-traumatic slave syndrome, and it dives into the psyche of the African American and what we actually like went through and how that affected us generationally. Not only this is really sad, but spiritually and politically, and it's just that we have done to our DNA and to our bodies and to our families and to our family systems, and how that has extended outward across a huge piece of land. And I think that kind of sparked an idea in my mind, like, how can I continue to make things and make art and make programs and make projects? I talked to my mom 8 months ago about what her story was coming to America. Because yeah, she's like, oh, you know, I came and I was here and I had to do that. But really, why are you so afraid to live in Jamaica? And she's just like, I'm like, yeah, I'm from Jamaica. I want to live in Jamaica. She's like, and then I talked to her and she's like, actually bigger than that. And then she starts to delve into these stories of like, she actually loved it. And she like loved like swimming in the lake and eating fresh fruits and how it was a clean and everyone knew each other. But then she would kind of like drove out like, yeah, what's up, weird man on the block? And you stare at me when I was like by the lake from the window every day. Or this is what happened with that, and how my mom left for years, and how it's a common thing that parents just leave their kids to have to live like somewhere else because of post-colonialism. It's hard to start a life and create real wealth for your child or for a family or ideas. So often we leave, as her mom did, to come to the States to make money and then send her to raise a sweet telling her like we shouldn't have parents. And that was kind of a scary and dark time in her teenage years to be a young girl child in a place that she was loved and ran to the lake, but then really weird moments where she's like, oh yeah, I don't really miss that. And so it really became a whole picture of our relationships with her, and how she raised me, and which fears she had raising her, just what it is to be a black parent in general raising a black child, let alone a queer child. So I still like to say, I think a lot of my entrepreneurship has been really investigating the fears that I have and trying to figure out how I can continue to overcome them and grow through building things, whether it be parties or projects or art. Caribbean I haven't been to outside like a drunk weekend in Puerto Rico. It was fun. And then DeVonn told me a really beautiful story that actually had me in tears, and it was like another kind of like notch of like, you know what, I do need to just like go to Jamaica. And I would have never had that conversation with DeVonn if I didn't just do a project of like, I'm gonna start a podcast. Why? Because I'm spiraling in a Jamaican, I have 18 jobs. Why? Chris, sit down. But it helped. And I got on the phone with DeVonn, I was like, how you been? That's the podcast episode. How you been? What you working on? How's Yardy? And you told me about this trip and how, and in short, he went to Jamaica, had a great time, and I think that he had set up a day to go visit his family in the countryside, and he freaked out and called his mom, I think it was, and was like, they're gonna hate me. why am I even here? Do you remember that? And I was like, yes, I feel you how you feel. And he's like, and his mom was like, no, you're really fine. They want to see you. They miss you, they love you, you will be embraced, it's fine. And so he mustered up the courage and went, and the simplest thing of him just going, they're all like, oh, DeVonn, you're here. And they're like, hey, it's me. They're like, no, come, like, you're our family, how are you? And the story ended with them just sitting on the porch and just chilling. And I thought to myself, oh my God, I want that. I'm so terrified of going to Jamaica. I'm so terrified of being turned away from my family. It literally in my soul. I remember being young and being like, I'm gonna be the Black Matthew Shepherd. I'm gonna be out here and talking to you just through this thing I'm doing. Like, I'm gonna do a podcast now, really pushed me to like, okay, I'm gonna do this. And that's why I met Chaday. So we then can do CONNEK. And you know, it's one thing to go to a party and it's one thing to like, even have a dinner, but I think continued push of me like, what else can I do? What can I do something new? It's only continue to let me learn about myself and open up myself because I have so much amazing people around me pushing me. And I hope that happens for everyone around me. Like, so you should now call DeVonn if you met DeVonn tonight and talk to him about X because it'll help you. And that's why I see it all flowing together.
I think meeting people has always been, I really enjoy energy. So like, I love meeting people with like good energy and kind of share conversations and share ideas and grow and learn. And I remember when I met Sige and the Bufu girls. These girls are amazing. They have Bufu, Biosporos, they're pushing things, ideas. They're like trying to retrain our brains to be the best that they can be. And I remember they contacted me online and they were like, are you queer? You're Jamaican and queer? Are you in Jamaica? And I was like, yeah, I'm in Jamaica, what's going on? They were like, we're coming in 2 days. I was like, I'll pick you guys up. I'm taking you guys to the beach. Because like, they kind of had this idea that no one was queer in Jamaica, and this fair as well, as Chris was saying, that like, people have around my country and our own third world countries similar to it, which is funny because I was afraid to come to New York because so many random people are shooting up places nowadays. That I was like, Lydia, should we be going to New York right now? I don't know. But it's really interesting because I met them and I feel like we both blew each other's minds. Like, just the work that they were doing and the things that I was doing, and in turn being able to show them my country authentically, like my favorite spots, and having these conversations, and then eventually them leading me to Chris, you know what I mean? So I feel like being open and meeting people, especially when you're an adult, like, you know, it's so important because it teaches us so much, and there's so much to learn across borders because we're all dealing with different things and different problems and different paradises. You know what I mean? Like, if you guys been looking up here, I'm sure you've seen some stuff from Jamaica. You're like, oh, I don't want to go there. You know what I mean? So I feel like it is invaluable, and meeting people through entrepreneurship is something that I will always encourage, and just meeting people in general and following like your light and your energy, because it will bring the people to you that you need in your life, you know, and you have to listen to that.
And it actually harkens back to what you were saying earlier, and this is something you said to me before, which like has always had me shook, which is like, you can't just throw money at something. You actually have to be there, like physically engage, because that doesn't actually break down difference and oppression, and just like being oblivious to like what's actually like happening in other people's worlds. So with Yardy, one of the first things that I wanted to do was just think about how, like, where does diversity actually exist in different occupations in food and agriculture. So one of the first things I ever did was I researched, like, where all the black farmers were, where are the black queer farmers, where are the women farmers, do they exist, are they around, who are they, what are their names? You know, what are they growing, like, what are they thinking about? Because I know it's not like just kale. I know, And so, or maybe it is, I don't know. I'm gonna keep it actually. But basically, I was reading this article, and this is maybe 3 years ago, before I even started the company. I was reading this article in Edible Brooklyn, and I came across this article about East New York farms. And I was like, oh my God, Black people growing shit? That's iconic. Like, I need to go find them. So, lo and behold, it's a 15-minute train ride away from. I was living in Crown Heights at the time. I go to one of their Saturday markets, and I meet the director, David Vigil, who was just talking about sort of like what you mentioned. It's like everyone wants to, when it comes to nonprofits, people want to just give money to it, but will you actually go to that person's farm and actually see the people and shake their hands and eat their food and walk into their house and just be kind to them? And how can we change the way that we think about exchange culturally and economically to make sure that things like that don't happen, because that doesn't really break down this thing of difference and animosity that we're talking about. So one of the things that we always try to do is incorporate the young volunteers and the growing practices of these farms into a program. So we have this corporate lunch program where we go to businesses like Etsy, who have 600 people in their office, and if we can bring one crop to them that is reflective of the things that I grew up eating, which, and also tangentially, when I grew up, I was like, oh my God, I don't want to eat that oxtail. I'm not about to have all that in my lunchbox. Let's not do that. I want a Lunchable.
Exactly. I want to be normal.
Pause. Oxtail is the
So I'm saying, I just, I wasn't sure, now I'm sure. I'm just saying, that's my story. So I cook it all the time now, but the point being is we bring crops to people who maybe don't get to experience that, because Whole Foods is not seeing it for us in that way. So if I can be a sort of, a conduit for that experience for someone else, if it's okra or callaloo, or some different type of squash, or whatever it is, to bring to someone, and also build wealth back into the communities that we care about by supporting those farms, then why not do that? That is my responsibility as somebody who's not just a cook for cooking's sake, but how are we actually thinking about the circulation of the dollar back into Black and brown hands? Second story. Do we have time for this? Yeah. You sure?
Go for it.
Okay, fab. So I was saying earlier, I went to cook for that Young Men's Retreat, this group called Truth Workers, and it's a theater company. They do a lot of work with Black and brown youth. And they were basically just having a reflective time. They had mentors up. The night before the young men came up to, I was in Albany specifically, we were sitting with the program director, Samara, and she was saying to me, she was like, listen, we can plan all these things out, but it has to be organic. You have to understand that these are people that they have real life feelings and a lot of hang-ups or just things that are going on in their lives that we need to be aware of. Because it's not just cooking food, it's really touching someone. It's really being able to be a part of someone's life in a very significant way. So I was cooking 3 meals a day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner for these 11 people. And one of the things I was watching was I'm very quiet when I'm cooking, most of the time just observing, just trying to be present. And just seeing something I realized in my brain, it was a brain massage for me. I was I haven't seen 2 men hug a lot in my life. And so just thinking about what you can do when you spend intentional time in spaces together, and the images that I have to deconstruct and reconstruct for myself that I've been taught are that, or this means that you're a faggot, or this means this. So not real. And going back to the story, the thing about the story about me calling my mom and bawling, I was bawling. I was ugly crying at a restaurant at Spanish Hotel in Kingston. Spanish Hotel, yeah. And ugly crying. It was bad. But basically it's not knowing if it was okay for me to cross over the aisle and have interactions with other brown people in my family because of my effeminateness or something like that, or how I carried myself. But the one, and also being able to touch base with my mom's father specifically. It's as a Black man, how are you perceiving me, and what does that mean that our relationship can be? And so, so I finally got to the house, as Chris was saying, and the first thing that my mom's dad does is he grabs my hands and just looks me straight into my face and says, "It's been so long. It's so good to see you."
And like there was a pause, we both were like on the verge of tears, and then he goes and grabs a photo of me because it's been like almost 2 decades since I had been in Jamaica. So the only photo he has of me is this photo of me when how old am I? So like I'm 7. And I was like, well, first of all, we need to update you to Instagram because if you ever want a photo of me, there's lots there. You know, I can send you in the mail. But it's those moments just talking about like not just the professionalism of it, but actually the actual spirit of someone, like actually connecting with someone, which is so important. And for us to be, you know, like being in these positions to like talk to you all, and like obviously there's so much that like we have to learn from you, but like being in this position where I actually can write a story or like be on stage to say these things, this is what's important to me. It's not the press, it's not actually the money. I mean, the money is actually really important, so I'm kidding when I say that, actually. But it's really just being able to be like, hey, like let's break down the things we think we understand about each other and actually just re-look at it. Look at it in a new way. Think about what touch and sensuality, intimacy actually can look like. And that's what's important to me with the work that I do.
For RAGGA, I think that I started RAGGA just doing parties and doing kind of these visual stories and interviews with people and putting those online, and then the residency thing happened. But I remember sitting down with the curators and then just being like, so you're gonna have like 500, the hot 500 list of people in New York? Are you gonna have like a party in like Madison Square Garden? Like what's the plan? And I was like, I think the dream for RAGGA for the future is to just continue to obviously grow, but grow in a way that feels intentional so that I can always connect and reconnect with the people that I included to the RAGGA family. Because it really is, and I mean that, really important to me and personal to me that I know and have a relationship with people that include to the family. And not everyone's gonna be BFF and call all the time. I mean, obviously, I can't be best friends with like 30, 40, 50 people at all times. But I want to be able to have connection with them where if I call DeVonn up and be like, what's the tea? He's not like, who's this? I can't help you, I don't have your money. And he can tell me about what's going on in Jamaica, or he can tell me about like, who I can talk to in this museum, or how do I get around in Paris, or like whatever. And if I'm going through it and I need to talk to him for some advice. That's my goal, is that we continue to grow that. And I think that's a very big, lofty goal. I think that the future for RAGGA is blurry only because growth is always, it's a beautiful thing, but it's also a scary thing because I don't want it to just seem at a certain point kind of just fake. And I remember specifically during the New Museum residency, there being kind of like some very multiple conversations I had with different RAGGA members, and I was just like, sis, it's still me. Like, I am not on the cover of nothing. I don't got no money. Let me hold $5. Let's go get lunch. I still want you to know that it's me and have a relationship with you. So that's to answer that for RAGGA. And for CONNEK, I want to just continue to grow. I want the same kind of family that I've grown here with RAGGA. I want that growth to happen in Jamaica, and I want there to be crossover. I think that's also could be another goal for both platforms that I'm involved with, is to have there be more bleeding of like relationships, that it's not, I'm not just the center, but everyone just vibrates onto each other. So Oscar can call Chaday and be like, I want to DJ in Jamaica. Or, you know, Tal Lewis, who's in the RAGGA family, can like, you know, call up another person who's from Puerto Rico and be like, I'm coming to Puerto Rico. Where are the queer parties? Where can I hang out? I want to do a healing night in, you know, St. Lucia. Hit me up. So that's a goal, I think, generally for both.
I'm a dreamer, so my goals are like so huge. For Jamsterdam, I think it has always been about creating space for people to feel comfortable and be themselves. I feel like an ultimate goal would be to buy a piece of land in Jamaica that trans women, trans men, gay men, lesbians, people that are gender non-conforming, that get kicked out by their family. I was kicked out by my family when I was 16 for being super gay. and it was very difficult, but like I was able to finish school and start businesses, and I was always a big dreamer, you know. But it's not easy for a lot of people. So like that would be one of my goals, to be able to like have a space where people can be like, okay, I need a space for right now until I figure out my life. I can be here without people attacking me or bothering me or calling out mean things. And then I think for CONNEK, a huge goal would be obviously for everyone that is interested in Jamaica and that thought it was like this, to be able to come and see it and enjoy it, or even just to, even if you're not coming, to change the perception of my country to the masses. And then also maybe to not only have CONNEK be the conduit for stuff like this, so maybe we can have a CONNEK app that if you're going to Honduras or Ghana or wherever it is, you can meet the Chaday of Ghana, or you can meet the Chris of India, you know what I mean? And they can take you on and they can see, so we don't necessarily, so everyone can get that linkage and that information without needing to necessarily have a reference, you know what I mean? So, and I design apps, that's what I do for work. So I know it's super possible. If there are any coders, developers in here, link me up, we'll deal with it together. Yeah, so that's it.
Okay, so I have two, because I'm feeling very dual hitting. Is it Pisces season? Gemini season? It's Virgo season?
It's Virgo season.
God, Leo is killing me. Okay.
That's another panel.
Okay, so my Virgo right now is speaking to me and saying, be concise, because we don't have much time. The first thing, the most immediate thing that we have coming up for us is we're actually building a test kitchen space. So you can come and have our food all the time. And that's also important to me, just because, like, you know, we like having a space, and anyone who's done events is like having a space that actually like supports what you are doing and is down. Like, thank you MoFAD for having us in this space, but something that's consistent and that also like ownership of something just feels very important to me as a queer Black person. So having a space that is like Yardy, whatever, feels really, really important to me. Like, what? Tell me. Give me the note. Give me the flashcard. And then I guess the bigger thing for me is like, yeah, I would love to see, so like the Caribbean diaspora is really, really, really fab, because it's like, you go to Canada, you go to, I mean, Virginia, I was like, there are Caribbean people here? You went to Oxford? You know, London, like just having like little satellite places, sort of like what you're talking about, where like if you want a Yardy hub somewhere else and you want to like have an event or programming that happens, that it is international. Also, the one thing about Yardy that I think I'm leaning more into is like, it's really a space for like investigation and learning. So like, how can we be more like a learning center? Like, how can we be like the Black NOMA? Which I said in an article one time and I regret it, but I think I believe in it again. Yeah, like how can we like really think about like doing research around like what makes our culture so fab? Because it lives within us, but like actually translating that to, and this is like why I love your writing so much, because like you're really creating an archive to go back to be like, this is what's happening. Does anyone see that this is happening? Or like, you know, how are we gonna think about this? And I think that's why having something that feels like a research center, a hub, or like learning if people to come and like feel like, hey, like I'm queer, like I wanna read that book. I'm like, well, grab that book. Like there's Tony, there's Audrey, there's Baldwin. It's right there for you. You know, like just having that accessible for people to access. I'm done. I just said access twice.
That is so important, because when you can document things, people in the future can see it and see that the work is there for them to build off of. And also it plays a role in supremacy as well. Like, if people don't have documentation, it's assumed that people weren't doing the work when actually they were.
Yeah.
So you brought that up. So, does anybody have any questions? We're gonna open it up.
Tribe is on 5 Upper Montrose Road, so it's in Kingston. And unfortunately, we can't really afford to be open all the time, but we strive to have 3 to 4 events every month, whether it be a games night. We do live music where we have like queer artists come and sing, and so you can get into what's going on locally, music-wise, whatever. We'll have people bring their art and stuff like that. So if you are in Jamaica and you want to find that space, on Instagram, it's TRIBE876. So we put up anything that we're doing there, and it's always open. Like if you message the page and you're looking for a space to hang out with your friends, it's our space, so we can always facilitate that, you know what I mean? And we do that a lot of the times.
So,